I am Shen Ran, once the second daughter of the Shen family, the quiet one, the one who followed every rule, who dreamed of love that could withstand the storms of life. For years, I believed I was blessed. My family was respected, my fiancé Ji Mochen was admired by everyone, and our marriage was meant to unite two powerful houses. I thought I knew happiness. I thought I was loved. But I was wrong. It all began on the day of my wedding, the day that should have been the start of a new chapter. The grand hall was filled with laughter, the guests were smiling, and my heart was trembling with excitement. I remember standing before the mirror, the weight of the white gown grounding me in reality. I was about to marry the man I loved, the one I had trusted more than anyone. But fate had a cruel way of revealing the truth. Before the ceremony began, chaos erupted. My sister, Shen Xin, rushed in, her face pale and eyes red from fake tears. Her voice trembled as she begged Mochen to stop the wedding. Ranran, give Mochen back to me, please, she cried, clinging to him as if her life depended on it. I did everything you asked, entertained those men. Please, let me go. Her words struck me like lightning. My mind went blank. Entertained men. What was she saying? I had done no such thing. But before I could speak, Ji Mochen's expression turned to shock, then disgust. What are you talking about? I tried to explain, but the room was already filled with whispers. Shen Xin collapsed into Mochen's arms, sobbing as she accused me of framing her, of sending her to shame. My parents' eyes were full of disappointment. My father's voice cut through the noise. Shen Ran, I never knew you could be so vicious. How could you treat your sister this way? I shook my head, desperate to make them see the truth. I didn't do anything. Please, let me explain. But Mochen didn't listen. His face was stone. Everyone, he announced coldly, the wedding is cancelled. My heart shattered. I reached out to him, pleading. Mochen, please, let me explain, but his voice was colder than ice. Send Miss Shen to the Nightscape Club as a server for 2 months. Let her reflect on her sins. I remember the sound of my own scream, the disbelief in my chest as I was dragged away in my wedding gown. My mother turned away. My father said nothing. And Mochen, the man I loved, looked at me as if I were nothing but filth. Those 2 months at Nightscape were hell. I endured things no human should. Men mocked me, touched me, laughed as I cried. I learned to stay silent, to obey, to survive. I stopped being Shen Ran, the daughter of the Shen family. I became just another nameless woman who served drinks and suffered quietly. When they finally released me, I returned home broken. My heart no longer belonged to anyone. My reflection frightened me. My eyes were hollow, my soul numb. But the torment didn't stop. Only coming out now, Shen Ran. Shen Xin sneered when I stepped through the door. Miss your time at Nightscape. Not done atoning. I tried to ignore her, but she grabbed my wrist, her smile cruel. Oh, Shen Ran, your acting improves daily. Like stripping. Then strip. Do it for my camera. Let the whole city see the Shen family's little princess's body. I froze. Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to cry in front of her. The Shen Ran she once knew had already died. When I saw Mochen again, I tried to reach him. I begged him to believe me. Please, save me from Nightscape. I can't stay here anymore. Please. He looked at me but no one wanted to hear about the real cause. My sister's lies. My fiancé's betrayal. My parents' blindness. When I woke up in the hospital one day, I found Mochen at the foot of my bed. His expression was unreadable. Ranran, he said coldly, you've shamed the Shen family enough. Don't make us regret helping you. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him everything. But I couldn't. My voice had been taken from me long ago. I thought my story would end there, in humiliation and silence. But fate, for once, gave me a sliver of mercy. It came in the form of Huokibai. He was gentle, soft-spoken, and kind, a doctor who treated me not as a fallen woman but as a person. When he touched my wrist to check my pulse, his hand trembled slightly, as if he could feel the pain buried beneath my skin. "You've been through too much," he said quietly one evening. "But you're still alive. That means there's still a chance to start again." For the first time in months, I cried, not from pain, but from the feeling that someone actually saw me. As I recovered, I realized that my past would never stop haunting me. I still woke in the middle of the night, hearing Shenshin's laughter, Mochin's cold voice, the whispers of the men at Nightscape. But Huokibai never left my side. He became my light in a world that had gone dark. I didn't know it then, but meeting him would change everything. Huokibai became my only anchor in a world that had cast me aside. Every time he looked at me, I saw something unfamiliar, compassion. It was something I had forgotten existed. He never pitied me, and that made his kindness even harder to bear. When I refused to eat, he sat quietly by my side until I took a bite. When nightmares dragged me back to that place, he waited patiently, never asking questions I wasn't ready to answer. He was the only person who didn't call me names. To everyone else, I was the disgrace of the Shen family. To him, I was just Shenran. One afternoon, as the sunlight slipped through the hospital window, he spoke softly. "If you want to leave this city, I'll help you. You shouldn't stay where people only see your past." I looked at him in disbelief. "Why would you help me?" He smiled faintly. "Because you deserve to be helped." Those words made me cry again. Days turned into weeks, and I found the courage to speak of what had happened. I told him about Shenshin's betrayal, Mochin's punishment, my parents' cruelty. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he simply said, "Then you must live well. Let them see that what they tried to destroy has only grown stronger." His strength became mine. But just when I thought life might finally let me breathe, the ghosts of the past returned. My sister Shenshin was still enjoying her perfect life, adored by our parents, doted on by Mochin. The world believed she was the innocent one. I was still the villain in everyone's story. Then, one evening, I overheard a conversation that shattered the last remnants of my patience. Mochin's friend, drunk and careless, spoke in a bar. That night, Shenshin said to make her suffer a bit. So I arranged for 20 men to teach her a lesson. Guess what? She's quiet now. Doubled the revenge, didn't it? My hands went cold. Every breath felt sharp. So it was true. Everything I had suffered was orchestrated by my own sister. I confronted Shenshin the next day. She didn't deny it. She laughed, twirling her hair like a child caught in mischief. "Of course I did it. Do you know how easy it was to make them believe? A few tears, a broken vase, and you became the monster. Even our parents thought you were jealous of me. I could barely stand. Why? We're blood sisters." She tilted her head. "Because you took everything from me. You were prettier, smarter, kinder, everyone loved you. So I decided, if I couldn't have love, neither could you." Her words burned through me. That day, something inside me hardened forever. When my parents found out that I had confronted her, they accused me again, said I was violent, unstable. "Enough, Shenran," my father shouted. "I knew you were faking it, trying to use sympathy again. If you can't reflect properly, go back to Nightscape." "Mother, father," Shenshin whimpered, clutching her arm as if I had hurt her. "Don't blame Ranran. I know she didn't mean to hurt me. The performance was perfect, and I was cast once again as the villain. I ran. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. The city that once belonged to me had turned into a cage. I went to Huoqibai. When he opened the door and saw me trembling, bruised, and desperate, he didn't ask why. He just said, "You're safe now." For a moment, I wanted to collapse into his arms, to let someone else carry my pain. But I had learned not to trust kindness too easily. "Do you want to record a video? Take photos? Torture me?" I asked bitterly. "You can have whatever you want. I just don't want to go back." He looked at me with quiet sadness. Ran, I won't hurt you. I'll protect you." I wanted to believe him. Slowly, I did. He gave me shelter, food, and a chance to breathe again. But news of me spread like wildfire. Online, my name became synonymous with shame. Photos and videos, some real, most fabricated, flooded the internet. I was called disgusting, dirty, broken. Strangers mocked me. Hotel owners refused me rooms. Shopkeepers spat at my feet. I had nowhere left to go. One day, my mother came looking for me. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. "Ranran," she said through tears, "it's all my fault. I shouldn't have believed your sister. Please come home." "Home," I whispered. "That place isn't home anymore." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "You sent me to hell. You let them destroy me." My father appeared behind her. "Enough. You've embarrassed us long enough." I smiled then, a broken, bitter smile. "Don't worry. The world already thinks your daughter is filth. You can rest easy." They left without another word. As the days passed, the truth began to unravel. Someone, perhaps Huoqibai, started leaking evidence. Messages, recordings, witnesses. Every lie Shen Shen had told was exposed piece by piece. The world that once worshipped her began to turn. My parents were shattered when they realized the truth. My mother fainted upon hearing the full confession. Shen Shen screamed during a breakdown. "I did it. I lied. I framed her because she was loved more than me." But by then, it was too late. The Shen family name was dragged through the mud. The Gu family tried to salvage their reputation. Gu Mochen came to see me. He looked older, worn down by guilt. "Ranran," he said softly, "I didn't know. I was wrong." I looked at him for a long time before answering. "You believed her without even asking me once. That's all I need to know about your love." He lowered his gaze. "Let me make it up to you." "You can't," I said. "Some wounds don't heal. Some hearts never forgive." From that day on, I stopped looking back. I started to rebuild Sometimes, I caught myself watching him, the way his sleeves rolled up as he worked, the way he never spoke unless necessary, and the warmth in his eyes when he looked at me. I didn't know what that warmth meant, not at first. I was still learning how to breathe again. One night, while I sat on the porch staring at the moon, he joined me. "Can't sleep again?" he asked gently. "I see their faces," I whispered. "Every time I close my eyes." He nodded. "Trauma doesn't disappear, but it fades when you stop letting it define you." I turned to him. "You speak as if it's that simple." He smiled faintly. "It isn't. But surviving is a choice. You've already made that one." For the first time, I realized I wasn't the same girl who had begged for love and forgiveness. I was no longer pleading to be understood. I was learning to exist on my own terms. And yet, the world wouldn't leave me alone. Rumors spread that I was living with another man, that I had seduced my doctor. The Shen family name surfaced again in the tabloids, dripping with scandal. But this time, I didn't care. I no longer had anything to lose. Huoqibai shielded me from it all. He faced the world's cruelty with calm defiance. "Let them talk," he said once. "They can't take away what's already been stolen." Still, guilt lingered inside me. "You shouldn't have to suffer for me," I told him. You're a doctor. You have a future. Being near me will ruin you. He looked at me then, really looked. Ran, I chose to be here. You didn't force me. Stop thinking you don't deserve care. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept peacefully. But life has a way of dragging the past into the present. One afternoon, I was working quietly when a familiar voice broke the silence. Shenran. I froze. It was Gu Mochin. He looked worn, haunted, not the proud man I once knew. His eyes darted around the room before settling on me. You're alive, he whispered. I didn't answer. He stepped closer, his voice trembling. I've been looking for you. Please, come home. I'll make everything right. Home, I repeated softly. There's no such place for me anymore. He lowered his head. I know I wronged you. Shen deceived us all. But I swear, Ranran, I'll spend my life making it up to you. I studied him quietly. The man who once stood so tall now looked broken, his arrogance stripped away. But no apology could erase what he had done. Do you know what it's like, I said slowly, to be locked in a room full of laughter while you scream for help? To call the person you love, begging him to save you, and hear him say, you deserve it. He flinched. I didn't know the truth. You didn't want to know, I interrupted. You wanted a villain, and I was convenient. Tears welled in his eyes, but I felt nothing. You once told me love was about trust, I continued. When I needed yours most, you destroyed me. He didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. He left quietly that day. I thought that was the end of it. But guilt, once awakened, never sleeps. Weeks later, Shen's crimes came to light in the worst way. She had lost her mind completely. News spread that she was violent, paranoid, unable to distinguish truth from lies. The same sister who once smiled sweetly in front of cameras now screamed at walls, accusing invisible ghosts of stealing her life. My parents, consumed with regret, visited me again. My father fell to his knees, his voice cracking. Ranran, forgive us. We were blind. My mother sobbed beside him. Your father and I were fools. We punished the wrong child. I looked at them, my heart heavy but distant. You didn't just punish me, I said quietly. You destroyed me. We'll make it right, my mother insisted. Come home, please. I shook my head. There's no home for me in that house. Keep your apologies. They can't bring back the woman I used to be. After they left, I sat by the window for hours. I thought about my sister. How jealousy had turned her into a monster, how love had turned me into a ghost. That night, I asked Huokibai, do you think people like us can ever be whole again? He thought for a long time before replying. Maybe wholeness isn't the goal. Maybe surviving with scars means we've already won. Something in his words broke me open. I realized then that I was falling for him, not because he saved me, but because he never asked me to be anyone other than who I was. Time passed. Slowly, laughter returned to my life. I began to find small joys again. A cup of warm tea, the sound of rain, the quiet hum of the clinic. Then one day, tragedy struck again. A call came. Shen had escaped the hospital. She was unstable, dangerous. I didn't know what to feel, fear, pity, or dread. That evening, as I closed the clinic, I saw her standing outside, her hair disheveled, her eyes wild. Ran, she said, her voice trembling with both hatred and despair. You took everything from me. Even after I destroyed you, they still love you. Why? Why do they love you? I took a slow breath. Because hatred doesn't earn love, Shen. It only destroys it. She laughed, a hollow, broken sound. Then we'll both be destroyed. Before I could react, she lunged at me with a knife. Everything after that happened in flashes. A scream, a blur, and then Huo Kibai's body between us, blood spreading across his shirt. I fell to my knees beside him. Kibai. No. He smiled weakly. I told you I'd protect you. Don't speak, I cried, pressing my hands to the wound. Please, stay with me. He reached up and brushed away my tears. You have to live, Ran. Don't let this break you again. When the ambulance arrived, I was covered in his blood. I refused to let go of his hand. At the hospital, the doctors worked tirelessly. Hours later, one of them came out and said, he needs a kidney transplant. Urgently. Before they could finish, a voice spoke from behind us, Ji Umochan. Use mine, he said. Everyone turned to him in shock. He met my gaze and said quietly, let me do this one thing for you, Ran. I owe him my life for saving yours. I wanted to scream no, but he insisted. You don't have to forgive me. Just let me do this. The surgery succeeded. Huo Kibai lived, but Ji Umochan never woke up. When the doctor handed me his death certificate, my hands trembled. I didn't cry. I couldn't. It felt like another chapter had simply closed, one filled with pain, betrayal, and unfinished apologies. Later, I sat beside Kibai's hospital bed. When he opened his eyes, I smiled faintly. You're alive. He reached for my hand. Only because of you. I shook my head. Because of him. Days turned into months. The nightmares came less frequently. I began to smile again. Small, fragile smiles that slowly became real. But the past has a way of finding even those who try hardest to forget it. One morning, I opened the newspaper and saw a name that turned my blood cold, Shen. She had escaped custody again. The article said she was unstable, violent, and possibly dangerous. I told Kibai, but he only looked at me quietly. We've come too far to be afraid again, he said. Still, that night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house made me flinch. I kept thinking of her voice, that bitter laughter, her eyes full of hate. A week later, she found us. It was late evening. The clinic was closed, the lamps dim. I heard footsteps behind me as I was locking the door. When I turned, she stood there, pale, gaunt, her clothes torn, her hair matted. Ran, she whispered. You're still alive. I froze. Shen. She smiled, a twisted, trembling smile. Do you know what it's like to live in darkness? To be forgotten while the world still forgives you? I didn't ask for forgiveness, I said quietly. I just wanted to live. She stepped closer, her hands shaking. You took everything from me again. Even now, you have him. You always end up loved, don't you? Please, I said softly. Stop this. You need help. Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of sorrow. If I can't be happy, neither can you. I saw the glint of the knife before she moved. Time slowed, her scream, my gasp, the blur of movement, and then Kibai's voice shouting my name. When I looked down, the knife was buried in his chest again. No, I screamed. Kibai. He fell into my arms, his blood warm against my hands. Shen dropped the knife, staring in horror at what she'd done. I didn't mean, she stammered, but her voice broke as sirens wailed in the distance. She turned and ran into the darkness. I didn't chase her. All I could do was hold him, whispering his name over and over, begging him to stay. At the hospital, the doctors worked through the night. When they came out, I couldn't breathe until I saw the faintest nod. He would live, but barely. I sat by his bed for days, refusing to leave. When he finally opened his eyes, his voice was weak but steady. You're still here, always, I said, tears spilling down my cheeks. He reached for my hand. Promise me something, Ran. No matter what happens, Don't let your heart die again. Live, even if I can't. I shook my head fiercely. Don't talk like that. You're not leaving me again. He smiled faintly. You're stronger than you think. He was right. Somewhere along the way, pain had turned into endurance, and endurance into strength. Weeks passed, and Kibai began to recover. The police caught Shen Shen not long after. She was completely unrecognizable, eyes blank, her mind lost in the storm she had created. When I saw her in the courtroom later, I felt nothing. Not hatred, not satisfaction. Just sorrow. She screamed at me from the dock. Why are you still happy? Why won't you die like I wanted? I looked at her, my voice calm. Because you can't destroy what's already been rebuilt. She was taken away that day, her screams echoing down the hallway. It was the last time I ever saw her. Months turned into years. Life in the coastal town became gentler. The villagers grew to love us. The children brought flowers to the clinic, and old women left fruits at our doorstep. One afternoon, as we walked along the beach, Kibai stopped suddenly. Ran, he said softly, when I was in the hospital, I heard everything. Mochin gave me his kidney, didn't he? I hesitated, then nodded. He wanted to make amends. He sighed. Do you miss him? I looked at the waves. No, but I forgive him. That's all that's left. Forgiveness. It wasn't for him. It was for me. Later that year, under the same sky that once witnessed my ruin, Huo Kibai knelt before me with a simple ring. Ran, he said with a smile that melted every wall I had ever built, will you marry me? I laughed through tears. After everything we've been through, you're still asking. He took my hand gently. Because I want you to say yes. And I did. Our wedding was small, only a few close friends, the sea breeze, and the sound of waves. No family, no reporters, no lies. Just us. When he lifted my veil, I saw love that didn't demand perfection, that didn't punish mistakes. Love that had endured fire and still chose to stay. I thought of Mochin, my parents, and even Shen Shen. I realized they had all shaped the woman I had become, not through their love, but through their cruelty. And in surviving them, I had finally found peace. That night, as the tide whispered against the shore, Kibai pulled me close. You know, he said softly, the first time I saw you, I didn't see a fallen woman. I saw someone trying to live. I smiled. And now, he kissed my forehead. Now I see the strongest person I've ever known. For the first time in years, I believed him. It has been years since that storm ended. Sometimes, when I wake to the sound of waves crashing outside our window, I wonder if it all really happened, the betrayal, the pain, the years I lost. The world I once knew is gone. So are the people who destroyed me. What remains is this quiet life I've built beside Huo Kibai, the only person who ever truly saw me. Our house still smells faintly of sea salt and medicine. Kibai keeps his books on the kitchen table, where he writes late into the night. He says he's preparing a small health guide for the villagers, but I know it's more than that. It's his way of keeping hope alive for others, the same way he once kept it alive for me. Sometimes we walk by the shore after sunset, our shadows long and golden against the sand. He holds my hand, and we don't talk much. Silence has become our language, one that speaks of peace, of scars that no longer ache, of two souls that survived the fire and found each other in the ashes. The past feels like another lifetime. But it still reaches for me sometimes. Not long after our wedding, we received news from the city. The Shen family had dissolved entirely. My father resigned from all business positions, my mother left the mansion and moved abroad. The once proud family name that people used to whisper with respect now appeared only in newspapers as a cautionary tale. My sister, Shen Xin, remained in a psychiatric hospital. They said she rarely spoke, that she sometimes screamed my name in the night. I thought about visiting her once, but Kebai stopped me gently. "You've already forgiven her in your heart," he said. "You don't need to see her to prove it." He was right. I carried no hatred for her anymore. Only pity. As for Ji Yu Mochen, the man who had once been the center of my universe, I visited his grave one quiet afternoon. The wind was soft, the world unusually calm. His tombstone was simple, engraved only with his name and the years he lived. Someone, perhaps his mother, had left white lilies there. I knelt before the stone, my fingers tracing the letters. "You once promised to protect me," I whispered. "And in the end, you did, just not the way I imagined." I placed a small seashell beside the flowers, a symbol of the new life I had built far from the noise of the city, and left without looking back. The Ji Yu family, like mine, had fallen from grace. The scandals that followed Shen Xin's exposure had burned both families to the ground. No amount of apology or money could wash away what they had done. The media eventually moved on, but the damage remained. Yet, somehow, I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't want revenge anymore. I had already won simply by surviving. There were days when I still struggled with guilt. Guilt that Mochen died to save Kebai, guilt that I could live when so many others couldn't. When those moments came, Kebai would simply hold me and say, "He made his choice. And you made yours. We can't live chained to what we can't change." He was right again. Years passed quietly. We built a small garden behind the clinic, full of lavender and peonies, the flowers that once decorated the altar of my ruined wedding. This time, their scent no longer carried pain, only peace. Children often ran past our house, calling out my name. They brought us seashells, drawings, and laughter. I became the village's Ranjia, someone they trusted, someone who always smiled. It was strange, how the woman who had once been shamed and exiled was now loved by people who knew nothing of her past. But I never forgot. Forgetting isn't healing, it's erasing. And I didn't want to erase anything. Every scar, every tear, every betrayal, they had shaped me into who I was. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rolled across the horizon, I found Kebai standing by the window, looking out at the sea. "What are you thinking?" I asked. He smiled. "That I'm lucky." "Lucky," I teased. "You've nearly died twice because of me." He laughed softly. "And I'd do it again. Because every time I look at you, I remember why I'm alive." His words warmed something deep inside me, something I thought had turned to stone long ago. Later that night, I sat at my desk and began to write. I didn't know what I was writing at first, memories, maybe, or confessions. But soon, it became my story. The story of a woman who lost everything and found herself in the wreckage. "I am Shen Ran," I wrote at the top of the first page. "I was once the daughter of the Shen family. I was betrayed, broken, and left to die. But I lived, and that is my greatest revenge." When I finished, I placed the pages in a drawer. They weren't meant for anyone else. They were my final goodbye to the pain that once ruled me. Years later, when people spoke of me, they no longer used the words disgrace or shame. They said, "She's strong. She's kind. She survived." And that was enough. Now, as I watch the sunset paint the sea gold, I rest my head on Kebai's shoulder. "Do you ever think about the past?" I ask him. "Sometimes," he replies, "but only to remind myself how far we've come." I smile. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" He nods. "We're finally home." The wind carries the scent of salt and lavender. The sea whispers softly against the shore. For a long time, I listen, not to the ghosts of my past, but to the quiet rhythm of my own heartbeat. Once, I was Shen Ran, the girl who begged for love. Now, I am Shen Ran, the woman who found peace. And in that peace, I am finally free.